No, you got to save some of that for the brain. I'm sorry. We need some in the brain to be able to speak about games.
Some of it for this coconut porter here.
There you go.
Ew.
Oh, come on. Coconut porters are good.
I don't like coconut.
Okay, that's fair.
I like porters.
I don't like coconut, but I like coconut milk.
I love coconut, and I love coconut milk, and I love coconut porters.
I don't know that I've had a coconut porter, to be honest.
They're good. You're about to find out.
Yeah. It's from City Lights Brewing, brewed in Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
There's no coconuts in Milwaukee.
Yeah, this is the freshest coconut porter on the planet right here.
That's true.
Ooh, that is delish.
Bam, I'm telling you.
Oh my God.
That's what I'm saying, man.
DJ, take a
make
sip
DJ
of that.
try the coconut porter.
You're going to be a coconut connoisseur shortly here. Holy shit, that is good.
Yeah.
Who needs the ice cream? It's like the creamiest.
Yeah.
Man. Are you into that, or is it?
That is very good.
That is like unbelievable.
It's not because of the coconut.
No, that's pretty coconutty. I think coconut has changed. No.
Coconut has evolved over time.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode number 22, and my name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with our hosts Randall Nolery.
Hey everybody.
And DJ Mandolini.
Hello, hello.
And how are you two doing tonight?
Wonderful.
Great. I just had a sip of a coconut porter, Kevin.
And now you're a coconut fan.
How'd it go?
It was lovely.
There you go.
It's pretty tasty.
I hate to admit it, but
oh man. Well, we're not here to talk about beer, unfortunately, but
what are we here to talk about?
We're here to talk about some video games per usual.
Okay.
And today we're going to talk about yet another new video game. I don't know what our problem is lately, that we're playing some games that are relatively relevant.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, but I guess knowing us, we can't help ourselves when a new Nintendo game comes out. At least
That's
Randall and I especially.
I can help myself.
Yeah, I was a little bit, I scoffed. We've been playing Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. I'm not sure if I said that yet, but I scoffed a little bit at that $60 price tag. I'm like, this is a remake of a Game Boy Color game, or even original Game Boy game, actually.
Both.
Yeah, and then remade or updated or whatever Game Boy Color, but like, they really, other than like this, you can unlock dungeon rooms and shuffle them around, and there's some kind of like build your own dungeon mode.
Yep.
Not to the extent of Mario Maker or anything like that.
No.
That's really all they've added to this game, other than a new coat of paint. And I was a little bit disappointed that they were asking for a $60 price tag when, to be honest, it wouldn't be surprising if this was maybe something that was originally intended to be released for 3DS, and then they were like, that's kind of going by the wayside. Let's shift gears on this project. And I have no idea if that's the case, but
or intended to just be eShop only download or something. Yeah.
Right. So just to know that this was like a full $60 retail game, was a little bit off-putting, but sure enough, I ran an errand and I was at Target and picking up some groceries or whatever I was getting, and I happened to be the day that game came out, and I saw it on the shelf, and sure enough, I'm like, I can't go home without the new Zelda game. So I picked it up, and I've actually played a lot more of it than I expected. I've been some of my time has been sucked up into some other games that we'll get to later. But I ended up, playing through the first like 3 dungeons or so,
nice.
3.5 dungeons. I'm like just getting up to where I'm, getting ready to enter or equip all or, do the little puzzles and whatnot that I need to do to get into the 4th dungeon. And I'm having a good time so far. It's definitely a super charming, like, it's got that kind of toy box art style if you haven't seen it. Like Link looks like almost like a little pop figurine.
Yeah, it's like almost like a diorama or something. I'm not sure how to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, like everything has this like almost like it's shiny, and it almost looks like it's like plastic. It definitely is made to look as if you're playing with toys almost.
Yep.
And it looks great, it does. In some ways, I am a little bit. I will say, I wish there was something now, one of the things that has come up is like there has been some frame rate issues with the game.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we've even talked about in this podcast before, not being something that really bothers us that much. But I mean, it is like constant almost. Yeah. Maybe not constant, but it's pretty frequent, especially for a first-party Nintendo game.
It is surprising that way because typically they're so good at optimizing their games, especially the first-party stuff. To have it chug like it does from the get-go is like, ooh.
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier, like especially for something like Breath of the Wild,
right,
that can run all these crazy overlapping systems, and it's a great looking game, and different in many ways, but a great looking game, and so much more going on with like what I would imagine, at least, what's demanded from the system, memory and whatnot. It's just kind of surprising, and you just don't see this too much from Nintendo titles.
And they got that running on Wii U, let alone Switch.
Right. I didn't even think about that, but yeah. And maybe that's part of the deal. Maybe they're just kind of overclocking it here a little bit, but
right.
But yeah, just a little bit disappointed. I mean, for the most part, it still plays like it's not bothering me to the point where like I want to turn it off or anything. But it's definitely noticeable to where I'm like, at first I was like, oh, is there maybe a setting I can change, or is something wrong, or But after a while, I was like, I guess this is just how it is. It's kind of like when you can tell you're kind of moving into a new area of the map. Like it's all made to be all seamless. Like everything just kind of transitions screen to screen, but all in one movement. But you can clearly tell when it's like loading some new stuff in. It's not popping in or anything, but you can just, you can feel it chug, like you said.
Yep.
And I also, I kind of started getting at this, and then I got sidetracked with the chugging frame rate. But there's also like this like filter on the top and the bottom of the screen that keeps things kind of like blurry a little bit, and it's like a really, like, at least on the bottom of the screen, it's like a really hard line from where it's like, this is where it's blurry and this is where it's not blurry. It's not like a smoothed like roll into the clear,
right,
the clarity, and it's supposed to give it, I guess, this like kind of like dreamlike quality, or this like toy box diorama style. But just something about that like hard line is like, I notice it all the time. It doesn't look seamless.
It's kind of harsh, and maybe that's what they wanted to do or needed to do, because I'm pretty sure the original Link's Awakening, like the other old school top-down Zeldas, is more like screen by screen where you're moving through. It's not just like one seamless whole world that way. So maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's what they had to do to allow for that kind of loading in, or it to be smooth scrolling. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility, but a little bit of a bummer, because it just kind of, it just looks a little unfinished, I guess. And I don't want to say that, because everything else about the game looks great. All the details and everything, is just so, like, it's almost like you don't even see a polygon in sight. I mean, everything is so smooth. Like, something that's supposed to be round is like a perfect sphere, I mean, it really looks like, and something like the way they're using those lighting effects, and like the way they have that like plastic shine to them.
Yep.
It's like it's a really interesting look, and I'm really charmed by it. But it just, it does also, as charming as it is, it does have a little bit of like an uninspired quality to it as well. Like, every tree does just look exactly the same. And I mean, I guess that's how it is in the 2D games too.
Yeah.
But it is a little, in 3D, it's just a little more noticeable, I guess, that it's just like, this is just like the same asset used over and over and over again.
I guess that's true. When it's 2D old school sprites and you're just seeing the same assets, that's just like, oh, we reused the tile set because we had this much memory to use, and that's no longer a constraint when you have a modern Switch release that can be practically as big as you want.
Right, and there's no like effects, like, the trees aren't like blowing in the wind or anything like that. It's just pretty static, and again, it does lend to that like toy like feel.
Yeah.
But for me, I guess it's just a stylistic choice that works in some areas for me, and then in other areas, for the world at least itself, it kind of makes it feel a little shallow, I guess.
What I will say is this technically wasn't developed by Nintendo. It was developed by Grezzo, which
interesting
previously had done a lot of more of a kind of porting work for Nintendo. They did like the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask ports to 3DS. They've primarily it's been almost entirely 3DS ports that they've done up to this point. Besides, they made that game Ever Oasis, but besides that, it's been like porting the Zelda games to 3DS and porting Luigi's Mansion to 3DS. This was kind of one of their first big projects that wasn't just a port necessarily, even though it is a remake of an older game.
Yeah, and it is, I will say it's impressive again, I'm kind of mixed on this too, and apparently that's just my MO. I'm just mixed on everything, but like it's impressive in the sense that, like, again, this is a game that's like, I think like 25 or 23, 28 years old or something. I mean, we're talking about like a Game
93
Game Boy title. Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about a pretty old game here, and they essentially, other than the visuals, like we said, they really have not updated the actual like level design or dungeon design or anything like that. I mean, from what I understand, is like to a T the same game.
Definitely feels like it, yeah.
Yeah, I played a little. My brother had this game growing up, and I played a little bit of it, not a ton, but definitely like the opening sequence was like, oh man, yeah, I remember this exactly.
Yeah,
and it's pretty impressive, but it's also like that it holds up so well. But it also is like, it's a little unintuitive, like going back and playing these games now. Like, we've talked about Blossom Tales on the podcast, back on like episode 7 or 8 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that's like the way that game, and I didn't even play through much of it, but the way that game just kind of streamlined things, and I never felt lost. I mean, I've already had to look up walkthroughs 3 or 4 times just because I'm like, where the hell am I supposed to go? Like,
I definitely got close to that very early on, and I managed to figure it out, but I was like, ooh, that's
I just had a couple times where I was like, okay, I've played for about a half an hour and I've accomplished nothing. I've just wandered around trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go, and I'm like, I'm not having fun. I'm just gonna look up, and I just, like, as soon as I see like the first little nugget of information of like, oh okay, that's what I missed, I just close the walkout. Like, I don't want to see how to do it.
Right.
But I just want to see, like, I just want to make sure I'm on the right track instead of wasting more and more and more time. But I really, truly have had to do that like 3 or 4 times now already.
There's only so long you can sit there cutting down brush for coin.
Right. And there's, these are like a little bit more like, unlike Breath of the Wild, where you're able to kind of poke and prod at the game systems and whatnot. This is like, again, back to the more traditional top-down Zelda style, where like everything is like, you need to blow up this wall and get into this hidden area and get this specific item and whatnot. So it has elements of it. So I'm like impressed at how well it holds up for being an old Game Boy game and not really having to be changed, and still hold up as a solid, top-down 2D Zelda game.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm a little bit, I'm feeling like some of these top-down old Zelda games are really resting on nostalgia, and some of these other games are, like Blossom Tales, and I'm sure there's many others, but are kind of carrying that torch and really kind of streamlining that experience into something that at least that I prefer over, what it's inspired by.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think the modern touches of something like Blossom Tales, it makes all the difference. To get into these games, the accessibility aspect of, it's almost hard to even quantify all those little changes that, the modern touches that make all the difference, but just stuff not feeling obtuse as far as what you need to do next without hitting you over the head. That's like there's always a balance there, right? And I think games like Blossom Tales just do a great job just keeping your momentum moving forward.
Exactly. I never felt like, again, I didn't get as far as you two did, but like I never felt like I lost my momentum with Blossom Tales, where this, like, I just felt like I was getting stumped left and right.
Do you think one could argue, and I am not arguing this, but do you think one could argue that, there is a puzzle element to those seemingly obtuse pieces that
they're kind of like, but I guess they're kind of like, you're supposed to get at these hints from talking to characters in the town that like give you these vague hints of like where you're supposed to go. Like one of the missions is like similar to like an Ocarina of Time, how you can get that like Ultra Master Sword or whatever, where you can like trade a bunch of items to get this last thing. Like there's like this regular main quest, but like how are you supposed to know that like you have to get this ribbon, and then you have to give it to a chain chomp, who
Right.
then gives you some dog food, and then you have
is
to
that where
take the
that's gonna
dog
end up?
food to the alligator who wants canned food, and then he gives you bananas, and that's how you unlock the next area, because you give a monkey some bananas who builds a bridge for you,
Right.
and then leaves you a stick for some reason. And then you get a honeycomb with the stick. It's just like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand any of this. And for what it's worth, to be fair, I do know that this game was heavily influenced. The creators and the designers were really influenced by Twin Peaks, the TV show.
Yeah.
So it is supposed to be like, I know they were like, we wanted to have this town of like, we didn't set the game in Hyrule, and it's all these kind of quirky, zany characters with their, but it just. It works for the characters, but it doesn't work for like, what the hell am I supposed to do? There's not a lot of connective tissue to like, they do have these little like phone huts that you can go into that give you pretty direct hints, like based on what you're doing at the moment.
Sometimes.
But I still was like having a hard time finding out. Like it kept telling me I had to find these feathers around the castle, but I'm like, I can't even get near that castle. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So I eventually had to look up how to get over there, and then of course when I figured it out, I'm like, oh God, how did I not see this? But
that always makes you feel like crap when you go through that process.
And I guess that's part of what we're talking about, like when I was playing Blossom Tales, not to keep drawing the comparisons, but I guess they're just kind of inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
But, I never felt that feeling, and they did do some things with this Link's Awakening where, you have a couple extra buttons, and they still make you have your two main items that you have to pause the game to swap between those. But you do have your shield and then the Pegasus boots, which are like your dash attack or whatever.
Yeah.
They do have those mapped to the shoulder buttons. So it does. I believe in the Game Boy game, you would have had to keep pausing to swap between those constantly.
Yeah, you would think so.
Because this game also does incorporate jumping more than any other Zelda game, at least.
Yeah.
Other than Breath of the Wild, obviously, but like
or Zelda 2.
At least I was gonna say, I guess, but yeah, at least as far as these like top-down Zelda games go, I mean, there are some small side-scrolling segments when you go like underground every now and then. But for the most part, there are some times like almost like Star Tropics or something where you have to like jump over these gaps and jump over these tiles and even do like running jumps over long gaps. So there's some different stuff mixed up into the Zelda formula.
Even Goombas. It's just like weird.
And chain chomps, like we said, like a bunch of, you get like a Yoshi doll at one point, like a bunch of Mario crossover. And again, just lending to that weird, like, where am I? This certainly is not Hyrule. But I guess just overall a little bit disappointed, even though I certainly am sucked into the charm, and I'm liking, again, for like a lazy like Saturday morning, it's the perfect game to kind of put on and just kind of breeze through until I get stumped. But I've just kind of resigned myself to like, I guess I'll, if I really am that stumped, I'm just going to look up the walkthrough, because I am enjoying being in this world, and I am hoping that they, I'm guessing there's been a lot of press or coverage on the frame rate issues and stuff. So I'm thinking Nintendo's going to get on there and do something to try to patch it if it's possible. But we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah, there's even some stuff online about installing it on the Switch's internal memory versus an SD card, but I think that only applies to the downloaded version, not necessarily the cartridge version, which we're
correct
with. So
yeah, I read that as well. Yeah, that the like installing it on an SD card, it technically runs a little bit smoother.
Right.
So,
and maybe we're just picking at this because it's Zelda. It's held to the highest standard in video games, just having that name in the title. And I am still excited to keep playing through it, but yeah, there's some issues. So
and I guess again too, with that $60 price tag, like again, I echo all the sentiments that you were just sharing, but also like with that full price game, it's like I expect this to be not perfect. Like I'm a forgiving person. It doesn't have to be without issues, but I just like something as simple as that for a game that doesn't seem to be pushing the Switch through its paces.
You wouldn't think, yeah.
You wouldn't think, yeah. I mean, it is a great looking game, but I don't want to diminish that at all. But it just doesn't seem to be that demanding as far as other things I've seen run on the Switch,
right? Like Breath of the Wild,
right, right. All right. Well, from one game that chugs a little bit here and there to another, and I don't want to I don't want to toss that out as a huge slight here, but every time this game auto saves, it just chugs for a good 2 or 3 seconds between each day.
Oh boy!
But we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before. DJ and I talked about Kingdom New Lands, and we ended up picking up. It was on sale recently for a little. It was only like $5 off, but Kingdom 2 Crowns, which is a sequel of sorts to the game, but it also is kind of like almost like an expansion more than it is a sequel, but it does add 2-player co-op, which is the main reason. We were just kind of hanging out one day and we were like, it's on sale, and we're having a ton of fun playing Kingdom New Lands already. Why don't we see what this is all about? Like, even if we just play it today, like if we half and half, 50-50, that's worth it already. So we ended up playing a bunch of that, but it has some other new features. Like one of the main features is it has like a shogun skin, or like a like feudal Japan samurai kind of skin that you can pick, and it does change the game a little bit. Like it changes like one of the characters that you can get that's like a character that holds like a spear or a pike now will be like a ninja that will like hide out in the trees in the evening or in the during the night cycle and kind of like sneak out and like kill enemies on the sly instead of like standing behind the wall and just kind of jabbing them. So it has that, and then like the trees that you kind of have to clear out and run out. And again, I guess we should kind of set this up just in case. Obviously, probably most people haven't listened to our previous episode talking about Kingdom New Lands, but it's like a side-scrolling strategy game that's, I guess, like resource / time management more than anything. You're kind of
like wave survival.
Yeah, it's and a little bit of tower defense infused in there as well, and really beautiful pixel art, really beautiful music. And this 2 Crowns is no exception. Really similar in style, other than like, you know, those different like Shogun elements and stuff that have some different graphical flares, and like you're chopping down these like bamboo trees and stuff instead of your typical just like whatever the regular forests and stuff look like. But you're clearing out trees to build up walls, or to build up, you recruit people to have them become archers or builders to help build your walls and stuff like that. And basically, I have sunk about 25 to 30 hours into this game over the past week or two. And just cannot stop playing it. I mean, I've probably been more hooked on this than anything I have played lately. And I just keep coming back. And the few of the ways that this game changes and in my opinion, improves on New Lands a little bit. New Lands is a little bit more of like a roguelike setup where like you're kind of starting from scratch every time, and it's all a little bit procedurally generated. And this one is a little bit as well. But you're starting the camp. It is a campaign, and you have these 5 islands, and you can travel between them, and if you die, you do start back at the beginning, but you kind of are left with like the foundations that you left behind on each island, so you're able to kind of go back, like any of the trees you've cleared out stay cleared out.
That's cool.
Or any of the one thing that they add is like some of the unlockables, you actually have to get gems or diamonds to spend on them instead of just coins. In the first game, it's all coins, that's all you get. Everything costs either 1 coin or some number of coins to upgrade or to build or to recruit, or to, make bows or hammers for your people to use, or whatever it might be. It's just that's your only resource. Now you have some gems that will let you unlock different like horses or different mounts that you can ride, or different like helpers that you can get that will like let you upgrade your farm to a farm that can have a stable, so you can keep an extra mount over there, or you can upgrade your wall to like a wall that has like a horn on it, so you can call your like troops that you have on the other side of the map over to this side of the map, or all kinds of different upgrades. But they do let you then carry those upgrades over, so even after you've died or have to start over the campaign, anything that you've unlocked, you still have to like re-spend the coins on them, but you don't have to like restart over. And like some of the things, like you can upgrade, you get these shrines, and you can upgrade the builders or the farmers or the archers. But in the first game, it would just be like you would have to spend coins each day to level up and let them stay upgraded for that day. Mm-hmm. Where this is like just a permanent, you spend, maybe I think it's a little more expensive, but you spend that coin, and then like your archers are upgraded for that entire campaign until you die.
That's sweet.
So there's a little more carryover and a little more strategy almost, because you're able to, if you're able to build up a strong enough like empire on each island, you're able to take a lot of people over from one island to the next. And this game also has like, once you clear out some of the islands, you're able to like, if you clear off the dock side of the island, there's always a dock and then like a mountain face side. And the dock side is like, if you clear that off, now you can like build a lighthouse, and maybe you could do that in the first game. Maybe we just never figured that out, but I don't think so.
No.
And like this allows you to then, like, we were able to finally just try this, DJ and I, and we were able to travel from one island to the other and like keep our boat intact. And usually you have to like get to the island and you crash, and then you have to like rebuild the boat to leave to go to the next island. And that was kind of the whole concept in Kingdom New Lands. And I think there's probably more going on there, but this is like, you have to essentially defeat these islands and like recapture the kingdom. And I guess I've been talking for a minute here, so DJ, why don't you share some impressions on like some of the co-op that we've played?
Well, with the co-op, it's interesting because, it's nice that each person can take one side of the map, because like they are big levels and it does take a while to get from one side to the other. So it is nice to be able to, split that in two. But on the other hand, I'm always, wondering like, oh, is this like proper difficulty or not? Like, like should I even have this advantage?
Does it feel like the game scales in difficulty when there's two people?
Well, Kevin, you could speak more to that because you played the single player for this. So
I would have said no for sure until we played today, and like some of those waves of enemies we were getting. But we were destroying some of these enemy portals, which then send more waves coming. But like I was seeing enemies that I had not even seen in the game up to this point in time. And again, I've played like 25, 30 hours of solo time.
Interesting.
On this game. So like on multiple campaigns, like I've tried playing some of the Shogun stuff. I eventually like, the only real difference gameplay wise, like you do have the ninjas and that does make a little bit of a difference, but it's mostly just that those bamboo forests are so much thicker. Like there's just more trees there. So you just have to spend way more time carving out the land. And it just was like a slightly more tedious version of the game. And even though I did like some of the different graphical flares and some of the different just artistic design in that theme, it just like it added enough of a difference where I ended up going back to the original skin. Although I am excited to see, it seems like they're looking at potentially adding more different skins that will also add a couple slight gameplay tweaks. And they have added some free Challenge Island DLCs that
nice.
I forget what even is entailed in that, but it's just like there's definitely some new Challenge Islands that were just added like within the last like couple weeks.
Nice.
So curious to see what they have in store for this game. And this is another game published by Raw Fury, which is kind of a little bit of an unsung publisher of indie titles. You hear a lot about, Devolver Digital and stuff like that. And
right.
Raw Fury is just pretty consistent. I'm a big fan of, we've talked about Bad North a ton on this podcast, and they've put that out as well. And I think they put out Steriden. They've just really consistent track record of really solid, good indie games.
Yep, Goner. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Dandara. I forgot they did that too. Yeah, yep. Dandara. Yeah, they got a really solid track record.
Yep.
But yeah, just something about like I can't understate how much like the music and the pixel art and just the setting and vibe of this game really lures. Yeah, I mean, it just lures you in. And actually, I should talk about this because on two of the campaigns I was playing, I actually like, because it's so chill and like you're just like playing, and I was like listening to a podcast and just like playing, and I was paying attention. I didn't even fall asleep, but I just kind of like dozed off and like ended up dying and losing my campaign. Like I had like fallen asleep and like had my thumb. I must have had my thumb like on the joystick and walked outside of the walls of my kingdom and just got the crown stolen. I actually had that happen to me twice.
Oh no!
So I guess that's just super embarrassing on my end. But
shows how addicted you were.
Well, how addicted I am and how addicted I still am, that I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep playing. I mean, I did catch myself last night. It just happened to me last night. and I like woke up to the sound of like me dying, and I was like, oh no, and I tried to like close out the game real quick, and I was too late. It had already auto saved. It had already chugged itself to a nice auto save. So a little bit disappointing on that front. But even still, like I said, even with those frustrations, I'm still just again and again and again. And now that we're seeing like, so one of the new features is like you can actually, the portal that's on like the mountainside in this game is like you can actually build a bomb now if you upgrade your castle to like the main or like the highest level, or at least the highest level we've got it to thus far. And then you can build a bomb and actually go into the portal with like your knights and archers, and a couple of the builders bring this bomb, and you have to like beat a couple more like waves of enemies and take it like right to like the heart of the inside this portal and blow it up.
Jeez.
And then you actually like secure the island. And I don't believe that was something that was in the original game. At least nothing that we saw. So it definitely does add quite a bit of new features. And again, all that element of like how the campaign allows you to carry things over from island to island really makes it feel like feels more like a world.
Yeah,
I
think the persistent stuff sounds really appealing to me.
Yeah, but it's still only persistent, like not per run, but it's like you do still need to invest in it each time, and it does give you a purpose to like go back from island to island to island.
Right.
Like maybe you want to go back because like you didn't have any diamonds or gems to unlock the. Like there's one character that's like a chef or something that you can unlock that then you can upgrade.
You mean the grandma?
Yeah, we thought there was like this granny with pink hair, and then I was like, at one point they take off the hat, and I was like, oh, it's a chef. It's like a chef hat. That makes sense because they build like a little. They turn one of your archer towers, ironically enough, into like a bakery.
Oh, that's funny.
You can bake bread, but then now instead of having to travel, like again DJ was saying, the maps can be pretty huge, and sometimes you have to travel pretty far to get to these little camps where you can recruit people that are just kind of camped out at these little tents in the woods. You can build this oven, and then they just smell the bread, and they're like, we gotta get what Granny's cooking. So it's kind of nice. You can kind of then at that point forget about, you've invested some coins in it, but you can kind of forget about going to recruit people and just focus on building up your kingdom, which is pretty nice.
That's cool.
And that was that something, because that was something that I never came across in Kingdom New Lands. I don't know if I got far enough, but you said there were some of these characters in that game, right?
Oh, yeah. They just have even more now.
Yeah. And same thing with the mounts. Like, I guess I had never even noticed that either, but there's a bunch, I think we've found like there was one like kind of elk or deer of some kind that with like,
the elk is in New Lands, yes.
Okay.
And like the war horse you can find, but yeah, again, they add a lot new ones.
Yeah, there's like this winged like horse kind of griffin looking thing, and there's like a dragon that can like breathe some fire on the ground, so you can actually like do some things that can like defend. Yeah, bear that can like stomp enemies. So there's some different like slight tweaks, but again, there's like almost no text in this game. It's all experimentation, trial and error, until you figure out how the mechanics kind of work and how the systems play off one another. And it's all, figuring out how best to tackle those challenges. And like, okay, that strategy didn't work for me so much this time. Let me try building the walls a little tighter in. I'm only trying not spreading out so fast, so thin, so quickly.
Right.
And
which
maybe
is very
just
tower defense-y. Yeah.
Right. So there's definitely some strategy involved, and definitely some like, okay, I need to level this wall up, but like, do I have enough time before nightfall, before this wave of enemies comes? And there's just like a really nice balance of like letting you feel that tension, but while still feeling like a leisurely, like lackadaisical game, which I really appreciate.
That sounds great.
With New Lands, like, I felt myself super hooked on that game too, and play hours on end, even if I was, losing. But, losing was very daunting, the thought of, having to go back from square one. And, the fact that you don't have to do that in 2 crowns is like even more reason to just stay hooked, like Kevin apparently is.
Yeah. Like, all I have to do is, like, my castle's still leveled up. All I have to do is, like, kind of rebuild some of my walls, which are still not half built, but, like, you only have to spend a fraction of the coins, and they'll build it to, like, the wall that you had already built. so you don't have to keep leveling up from square 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. You can just start right from level 4 if that's where you were at.
Nice. Yeah, because trying to like redo some of that stuff, it's not hard, it's just tedious. So
right.
It's good that that's just streamlined.
Yeah, and all, like we said, all the trees you cleared out or farmhouses you built and stuff, that all stays. So, and that's all different ways to just bring in money or to kill enemies. You really have to decide, like, I need more archers to kill enemies, but now that they're paired up with these knights who can attack enemies but they don't hunt anymore, now I need more archers so I can find people to hunt to bring in more coins. So it's just a really immersive game that I don't see myself stopping until I clear all 5 of these goddamn islands. And hopefully more to come, because I'm curious to check out some of these challenge islands too.
That sounds like a great gameplay loop.
It's awesome. Great. And for what it's worth, the co-op play is just drop in, drop out as well.
Nice.
So like I can be playing, DJ's here. Okay, cool. Just join in the game with me. And it does remember like exactly the mount that he was, like if he was playing last time riding the dragon, or the lizard thing that breathes fire, then like when he jumps in, he'll be riding that thing again. And
that's so cool.
I think even with the same amount of coins you had last time, like it seemed like you jumped and you had the same coins from when we were playing before, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But then again, I can continue. It's not like, that's a 2-player file now. Like if I wanted to continue on, or like, oh shit, we died. Like there was one point where we didn't end up doing this, but like we had died and we were like, maybe we won't play this again. And I was thinking like, maybe I'll just like get us back to where we were, and then we can just pick up where we left off. And we ended up just starting over. But
right.
But just nice to know that you can just like, it's just nice to know, I'm sick of playing, I'm going to drop out, but you can keep playing if you want.
Yeah. I like how they really change up like, the dying mechanic, I guess, a bit. Like, so with co-op, one player can lose their crown. They'll still be alive, but they can't interact with the world at all. Like they can't pay for anything. So they're essentially worthless, and the other character has to like pay for them to get their crown back. So I don't know.
It's a nice touch. Yeah, we were sitting there. I was like, I can't do anything. I can't chop down these trees. Like it was driving me nuts. They don't
tell you anything with text hardly. So we were like, is this game bugged? Like what's going on here?
Yeah, and especially because there were like those slight differences between New Lands and Two Crowns. We're like, what's supposed to be different? What's just not working right? Like one of the things, like on the first island, the ship just kind of auto builds itself. Like for the most part, like you just have to put the initial investment in it. Whereas in New Lands, you have to keep like spending 2 coins on piece of wood after piece of wood. And this does get to that eventually, but on the first island, they kind of give you that curve of like, okay, you don't have to hunker down on this island. You can kind of get there, get out, get some of the other upgrades on the other islands, and then once you've kind of buffed up, maybe you can come back here, maybe you can go to, keep pushing on, but either way, it gives you some options.
Right.
That's awesome. We definitely mistook some things as bugs just based on our New Lands experience, but no, this game is bug-free. 0 bugs.
Bug-free, and another game that, at least for me, gets that PP stamp of approval. Ooh. I love this game.
That's awesome. I need to pick this up big time.
You do.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, from one love fest to another, Randall, I know you've played some more Chasm over the past couple weeks, and I know we both were pretty into that game when we talked about it a couple weeks back, but how have you been feeling continuing on?
Another game that got the stamp of approval back in episode 19, hence the title of that episode.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks to Chasm. And when we recorded that, I was just super sucked into it, and I'd probably played about 75% of the way through it already in a very short amount of time. And so now I've seen it through. I've completed Chasm, and Chasm still is a great game, worthy of that Pursuing Pixels stamp of approval. I will say towards the end, I felt like they probably could have cut it even sooner than they did. It almost had a little bit more content than I needed. But that seems like a nitpick where
Right.
other people might have been happy to have more content there, where I was like, all right, I've seen what this game is and I'm very happy with it. But that's not the only time I felt that way about Metroidvanias in the past, where I'm like, okay, I've got this. I'm successful. I've seen the game through and I'm ready for it to be over, not in a bad way, but I've enjoyed my time. But it's still 6 areas. I completed about 15 hours, and that's with me being a pretty hyper completionist. The game, when I completed it in the credits, it tells you your percentage of completion. It was 100%. So
Nice.
I saw the entirety of this game, and I definitely loved it still. I loved, just like I said before in 19, I love the pixel art, and it's one of my favorite Metroidvania experiences. And the end boss battle and the end area, despite feeling a little long to me by that point, was still satisfying. The last boss battle in particular was a lot of fun too, and I was definitely feeling happy and nostalgic when I could tell, oh, this is the end of the game cutscene, and the credits started rolling. I'm like, all right, that was a good game. I'm happy I spent the time on this. So
yeah,
Chasm's great.
Yeah, you've got me excited to finish this one off. I have not played since we talked about it last, or at least not much. I might have played once or twice more.
There's been a few other games that have come out. You can
it just sucked some of my attention away at once I picked up Zelda. And got hooked on Kingdom. Like I said, I can't put that game down.
Right.
But yeah, Chasm is just a lot of fun and just. I guess kind of like what we were talking about with Link's Awakening a little bit. It sounds like this game maybe struggles with a little bit of like that momentum issue, like when it gets just a little too long, like cut one of those zones out of there.
Yep.
And like just let me keep feeling like I'm just plowing along, and now it's the game's reached its climax and let it happen, instead of making it feel like you have to stretch it a little further,
Right. Yeah, I had already felt, probably 10 hours in that I had gotten my money's worth, and I was happy with the experience. And there was more game, which is fine, but yeah, it for me, it could have ended a little bit sooner, but that still, on the overall experience, does not take away from what that game is. And me seeing it through and completing it says a lot, because that just really still does not happen that often for me. So that should be saying a lot if you know my gaming habits. So definitely recommend folks check out Chasm.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment as well. Like we did on episode 19, and looking forward to seeing this through. And I'm kind of curious to see that last boss battle, because
it's fun.
It's curious to me how like the last boss I fought in the game was that big like Titan, or that big like Olmec looking thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that boss battle, because that was the first time I felt like I was really like put to a challenge with my combat skills.
Right.
Like to where I was having to do like a little slide move to get out of the way and jump out of the way. A lot of more dodging than I was typically doing, and a little more twitchy. And otherwise, like, this game does keep the combat mechanics pretty much stay the same, other than you get some different weapons and whatnot. But it's, did you feel like that was getting stale by then? Was that maybe part of why it, because the mechanic, like Celeste or something like that, each level is like throwing a new twist into the mix, where this was just kind of like a new zone with a new theme and new cool music. And again, I was really sucked into this setting, so I don't mean that to sound like a slight per se, but it wasn't like the new zone was also throwing a new gameplay element at you, just some new enemies and whatnot.
Yeah, and the new zone was the new zone, or last zone as it were, was definitely harder. And required a little bit more of kind of map monitoring to figure out where you needed to go to kind of warp around the zone. It wasn't quite as straightforward as some of the other zones, which also took a little bit more time, which was fine. I expected the last zone to be difficult, but yeah, it didn't necessarily add any new gameplay element per se in it. And this game is definitely, I would say, even though there's a decent amount of combat with regular enemies, it's more focused on the platforming and exploration than it is on combat necessarily.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
But that was fine too. And the bosses definitely take that into account, where it's, you're using your platforming skills, and you're hoping that you've upgraded your magic sub weapons and whatever else, so that you can take on this boss that, might need you to hit it higher above than your regular weapon might normally be able to hit or whatever else. So there's factors like that involved with the final battle and some of the other boss battles in general, I'd say. But
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to finish this one up.
It's a good time. Chasm's great.
Awesome. Well, DJ, I know you've been playing a couple of games, and I know we've had a couple weeks off. So I guess what you're here.
I had a little vacation.
Play more games.
Exactly. And I guess why don't you start us off with a little serial cleaner, which is one that caught my eye a few times on the eShop, just having a super cheap price
shit
tag.
about it on an earlier episode of the podcast.
No, I took that out. I cut that out.
Oh. I clearly listened back. Well, as the audience may not have heard, we had a little discussion about the violence in a game such as Serial Cleaner. Serial Cleaner is a game where you're this man who gets hired by murderers to basically clean up the crime scenes that they create. So we had a little discussion about, the bloodiness and violence that's in games, and, what level adds to the game, what level of violence will take away from a game, etc. But, after playing through this game, this game's pretty dope. I don't know.
I watched you play like a level or two, and it actually, seeing it in action, it definitely presents that violence in a much more lighthearted, or maybe not lighthearted is not the right word, but a less serious tone. It has like a 70s, like funky music vibe, and like almost like a paper mache kind of, or like construction paper kind of, it's not super realistic looking violence,
Yeah. And I'd say that you yourself are never committing any violence. You're just, going through these levels trying to avoid the cops that are investigating the scene, and you're just trying to, pick up all the evidence and get rid of it. So
you're just being a creeper.
Exactly. So, there is, dead bodies you'll find and some blood there, and you'll actually have to like vacuum or mop up some of the blood. But even that is like kind of presented in a somewhat lighthearted manner. And, again, like there's a, jazzy music going on in the background that definitely, detracts from, any serious tones you could possibly,
yeah, it's like really
imagine.
Upbeat and fun.
Yeah. But, in addition to that, I really appreciate like just some finer touches that this game throws in that, make for a good user experience. Like, normally when you're going through the level, camera's focused on you. You can't see the entire level. Like you'll have to scroll through the level as you move.
And this is like top down perspective.
Top down perspective. And however, you can press a button to, do a little zoom out and see the full level in real time. So as, guards are moving around, you'll see their movement. But in addition, any, significant parts of the level, whether it be like piece of evidence, a dead body, is something you can use to create sound to distract the guards, like all the main parts of the level that you can interact with, they're all highlighted specific colors.
That's nice.
When you go into the zoom out mode, everything by default is like black and white, but like all the things you need to collect or get rid of are like labeled red, and like big things that you can move that kind of disrupt the guards patrol patterns will be in yellow or something like that. So everything's very intuitively laid out. Nice. And even with the guards themselves, you can see very clearly what their line of sight is. So like, okay, I'm safe if I'm here.
Yeah, they have like a nice cone of cone of vision that like if you're within this, you're seen. If you're not, you're in the clear.
Yeah. So I don't know, just having little polish like that, it something I really appreciate. And the game itself is pretty fun. Like stealth game, just going around dodging guards. If they see you, you can even, have a little chance to escape. You could just hide in a plant and they'll, like, if you find a hiding spot, they just completely are unable to find you, which is also kind of hilarious. Like, they've been chasing you. You go into a plant, and they're like, oh, okay, he's gone.
He's gone. I guess it was in my head. He's just a plant.
Yeah.
Well, that's another nice little touch too, is like when you're exiting a plant or a hiding spot, like it actually shows you the cursor of like where you're going to exit. You can kind of pick, am I going to leave above or below or to the left, to the right?
Right, yeah. So they do everything they can to make sure you have any information that you need to complete this task.
That's cool.
So, yeah. Nothing is unclear in this game. It is very, very well laid out. Had a nice time playing it, and there's even, after I beat it, I realized there's some bonus levels that I can go back and do. So
nice.
I was pumped to do that. So
And wasn't there an element, I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and didn't you say there's an element like the levels themselves are constructed, but like the where the bodies are, the evidence will all be different every time you play?
Yeah, so all those significant parts of the level, except for the guards themselves, I believe, all those pieces that you can interact with are somewhat randomized, so they won't always be in the same location. Which is nice because I don't want to, if I fail, I don't want to feel like I'm just going through the motions. And
yeah, now I memorize this part of the path, and I just am perfecting it each time further and further. It really does let you play it like in a more reactionary kind of way.
Yeah, cool. I never feel good about completing something after I've memorized it.
Right.
I feel like I don't feel like I won the game as legitimately.
What about Silver Surfer?
It's an ego issue. Well, that was just Twitch reactions from me.
One try.
Everything changes in that game. Nothing's the same.
The first roguelike.
There you go.
But yeah, no, as I was the one who initially brought up the conversation about like, I kind of am curious about this serial cleaner game, but I just don't. I wish I was just playing a regular janitor that was just cleaning up after the high schoolers, ever making a mess after the football game instead of cleaning up a murder spree. But after seeing it in action and seeing like the presentation and seeing like and hearing you mention all these different UI, like just things that make the game really friendly for the user. And again, I'm a sucker for a stealth game, so this actually is more up my alley than I initially thought, for sure.
Same.
Heck yeah. Didn't mean to throw you under the bus there, Kevin.
No, I'm more than happy to take
but
it.
I'll clean up the body.
There you go. He's been trained.
Well, hopefully you can maybe take this character from Serial Cleaner and clean some of the bodies out of your way in Darkest Dungeon, which is another game that I know you've been spending a ton of time on. And another strategy game that apparently, we need to rebrand this podcast.
Yeah, we do.
So we're not talking about pixels anymore.
No.
But anyways, why don't you tell us a little bit? Because this is a game that I think has been on, all of our minds. I mean, it's a game that kind of blew up a year or two ago-ish, I guess.
Yeah, our buddy Glenn has been telling us a lot about this, and, it really is a difficult but, like, engaging game. It's a turn-based RPG, and basically you're trying to train this party to get strong enough to eventually go through this darkest dungeon and defeat the evil that's in there. But there is just so much shit that wrecks your life. So to, get your party strong enough so they can, take on this darkest dungeon, you need to, have them go through a series of smaller dungeons to build up their strength, complete quests and whatnot. So the way those dungeons are laid out is you'll have a set of rooms that you'll go between, and then there will be a hallway that has maybe some loot, maybe some traps. There could be any sort of obstacles between the different rooms you're going through in a dungeon. when you're going through a dungeon, you have specific objectives you're trying to accomplish, like explore certain percentage of the rooms, or complete a certain amount of room battles, or find these different items throughout the dungeon. You don't know where they are. You're just gonna have to go and hope you find them.
That's cool.
And then when you get into battles, you have your 4 characters that you bring into the dungeon. You have a roster of characters that can be more than 10, but for any dungeon you're in, you can only take 4 of those characters with you to complete a quest. But each of those characters has a certain position that they're in. So one character's in the front, one character's in the back, and that matters because everyone's moves can only be performed in certain positions, and in terms of which enemies they can only attack enemies that are in certain positions. So there's really a lot of planning that has to go into that. And
I'm into that. That sounds awesome.
And there's the big factor in this game is all characters will experience stress when they're attacked, when they run into traps, etc. And stress really fucks you up.
So this is is this like a separate bar beyond like your health bar?
Yeah, it's the one that's like pretty much right next to your health bar.
Okay.
So if your stress meter gets halfway filled, actually, then your character will take on some negative qualities. There is the rare occasion where you'll have a character that responds to stress in a positive way, and maybe they'll become more powerful or whatnot. But there's like it's like less than 10% of the time it feels like that's the case. It's if your character gets stressed, they're gonna start fucking things up. And they'll do things like, they may skip their turn. Oh. They may attack one of your characters during their turn, stuff like that. So it's completely random. And not only that, they may take on these negative qualities beyond the dungeon, and they could, be in dungeons later on that may have certain permanent negative qualities. But if you fill the stress meter completely, your character will have a heart attack.
Ooh.
And when that happens, they go down to 0 health. Now, with this game, if you get down to 0 health, that doesn't necessarily mean that the character dies. And in this game, there's permadeath. So, you lose character, they're gone. They're technically on death's door. And so, if they have 0 health and they get attacked again, there's a chance that they'll die. They likely will die. Every character has like a certain amount of like death blow resistance. So like, they may get hit again and still withstand it.
Right.
But, having that heart attack gets you immediately to that 0 health point. So you're kind of fucked. And at that point, your stress goes down a little bit, but that means it can go back up and get refilled, and you can have another heart attack.
So just compounding as things start to crumble. It's just like, oh man, what am I gonna do?
Yeah. And you can get to a point where it's just like, I may not even complete this quest. We just need to fucking bail. And you can do that. But when you do that, your characters take on stress when they return to the town.
And you're not able to do anything in like your base or town to like try to get people back to normal or to let them get rest.
Town, so the stress is permanent permanent. It carries on. If you go back to base or go to another go to another dungeon. The only way to, the way you take it down is when you're in the base. You can, take them send certain characters to the bar and like have them gamble or drink beer, or, like send them to the chapel and have them talk to God. But when they're doing that, they're out of play, so you can't take them on the next mission. So you have to make sure that your backup squad, the characters you have left, would be able to take on a mission.
Is everyone gaining experience at the same level in this process?
No. Some I've gone through some missions where certain characters are leveling up more than others,
right,
or at different rates. So there are small differences to how they're leveling up, but back in the base, you can upgrade your weapons, armor. You can upgrade your abilities.
Oh, nice.
You can when you're in the base, you can recruit more people into your roster.
Nice.
There's a lot you can do, and there are certain what are they called, heirlooms that you find throughout the dungeons that are used as your currency for these sorts of upgrades in your base.
Okay.
There is gold as well that is used for upgrading. So to upgrade your facilities requires the heirlooms. Sending someone to the bar is just like give them 1,000 golds or something like that. So there are different resources that do different things. And I guess this gets into a difference between Serial Cleaner and Darkest Dungeon. Not that there aren't already a ton of differences, but I was saying Serial Cleaner, everything is very clear to the player. I think with Darkest Dungeon, although they do a good job of saying what everything sort of means, like what your stress means, or whatnot, like it almost felt like I was being presented with too much information at once to be able to properly absorb it.
Oh wow.
And there's almost too many things to be juggling. Which isn't a flaw. I think it feeds into like this theme of like just despair that I think the game is trying to evoke. Because guess what? I'm trying to play this on its hardest difficulty, where if you lose a certain amount of characters, if a certain amount of characters die, or if you don't, finish the Darkest Dungeon after a certain amount of time, you get a game over. And so I have many a time lost just way too many people and just had to start back from square one.
And you've got no persistent upgrades, like you're not doing anything like Dead Cells where you're like collecting some kind of currency and chipping away.
You start over.
Okay.
Start all the way over.
Kingdom style. Well, New Land style.
New Lands, yes, sir. And I'd like to beat this game, and I'm certainly hooked. Like I've put in many hours, despite having to go back and restart. But it's just like, I can't. Now that I've already been playing on hard, I can't go to normal, which is me just being stubborn. But
I could see that.
Although I will say, though, I might be misremembering this because I've not played the game myself, but I do think that hard mode, because this is a game that was in early access for a really long time, and I think I recall some of those features that were added in hard. I just feel like I remember reading at some point that they were like, this is the way we wanted to design the game. Enough people were like mad about the way they changed things from early access to this like thing that they added, that they were like, okay, we're going to leave a normal mode that like this will be the way you can play if you don't want that feature, but like we want to add that feature to the game, so we're going to have that in the hard mode or whatever. I just vaguely remember something like that.
I mean, just based on how like the tone of the game, it feels like these stipulations are in line with what the game is. So.
Right. Meant to be punishing, seemingly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah, there's, even though you start back from square one, like there's a lot of variety, in different playthroughs, just because there's like 15-ish types of characters that you can have, and you can have multiple characters of the same type in your roster.
Nice.
But like, what characters become available to you is pretty random. So in certain run-throughs, you could get, the Crusader and the Houndmaster as options for you in a given week. Or in others, you may get the Jester or the Healer or whatnot. So, and they all have like very unique play styles. So
that's cool. Forces you to play differently in each run.
Oh yeah. You are somewhat at the mercy of like what the game gives you,
right? And
you have to learn to adapt. So, again, not. There's no risk of like, oh, I'm just gonna memorize this.
Right?
Like, nah, you don't know shit. So yeah. There's and I feel like I've barely even. I feel like I haven't even gone that far, because like, so you have to get to like you need a party that's at like level 6 to take on the final the darkest dungeon. I've gotten my characters up to no higher than level 3.
Jeez.
And like, it's cool. Like once they start leveling up, like you feel like they are like, okay, these guys are beef. They're strong. They can handle anything. Once you get them, to a certain level, like once they get to level 3, you can't take them on the missions that you've been taking them on, because they're like, oh, this isn't a challenge anymore. And so now they'll only do harder quests. So
they're all just like, little DJs.
Yeah. So like they're even though they've been leveling up, the difficulty is scaled, so they're essentially just as weak as they were when they started.
Jeez.
It's just.
Now, how do you feel about like I know you mentioned a lot of like variety as far as the gameplay, but one of the things that's a little, I don't want to say off-putting, but I'm just not super into like the visual style. But are you feeling like there's like any kind of variety? Because every like screenshot and everything I see of this game, like it always just looks the same. It's just kind of got that like harsh, like that almost like graphic novel, harsh, like black, like, or I shouldn't say harsh, but like bold black outlines. Almost like a stained glass kind of look to it, but without much color to it.
Yeah, that is how it looks, and it doesn't really deviate from that from what I've seen so far. But like it seems that all the quests take place in the same general areas, and those general areas all have their own certain look.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not meant to be pretty.
Yeah. I guess that's just, it's another one of those, like I think I've mentioned again on the podcast before, I'm just not a big fan of that, like really bold outline characters. Again, it has like I don't mean this to sound as a slight, but it has like that like flash animation style. Like the games give me that little bit of that feel, something about it. And I don't know what it is about certain games that remind me of flash animation, because sometimes they don't necessarily look like that per se, but I just that's something that's definitely been a reason I've not explored this game, even though I've heard a lot of great things about it. I'm just like, I don't really like the presentation.
Well, one thing I neglected to mention is, as you're going through these dungeons, you have your torch that sheds light on the area and helps. The more light you, Jesus Christ, the more torches you add, the brighter it becomes, and the less challenging the battles are, and the more mentally resilient your party becomes. But at the same time, if you have the lights go out and you don't refuel the torches, if you find any loot, it becomes better. So, but you are risking, if you run into enemies, you are doing an uphill battle. So there is some of that risk reward.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I try to plot out like, okay, like if I go this way, there's going to be some loot potentially over here, and I don't think I'm going to run into these people. So maybe I'll risk letting the torch run out just so I can get better stuff. But sometimes you get surprised, sometimes you get ambushed, and sometimes you have to start the game over.
Does that have an effect in the battles too if you don't have your torches, or is that only in regards to the loot you find?
No, if you don't have much torchlight while you're in a battle, like the enemies will get buffs, like their attacks will be more accurate and they'll do more damage and stuff like that.
Jeez.
Or they'll cause more stress to your character, stuff like that. So there's just a lot of elements that are built to work against you in this game.
Yeah, it sounds like you got to do a lot of managing of like, what is the biggest risk to my party or my characters right now, and how can I mitigate that, or how can I negotiate around that?
Right.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of it's just meant to be kind of punishing and imposing just as a theme. Like even when you're talking about the experience levels, like, oh yeah, when you get up to level 6, like you're a powerhouse. Like that's such a small level compared to most games. And I'm sure that's a conscious choice on their part, right? Like to say like, oh yeah, level 3. Like, no, you're not level 30, you're level 3. Like that's, you got to work your way uphill this whole game.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's just like you're scratching and clawing your way just to get up one level.
Right.
That's interesting.
I'll never do it. No, I'm gonna put some more time in this and hopefully have some better results, or at least make it closer to the end and have something maybe new to report. So
nice.
Yeah.
But I do encourage you to check it out if you can look past the graphics. But my point in bringing my original reason for bringing up the torches, just let that light go out and you can't see anything.
Oh God.
Visuals won't matter, Kev.
There you go, Kevin.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, DJ, I'm definitely excited to hear more about Darkest Dungeon in the coming month. And I guess another game that kind of throws some curveballs at you and makes you kind of roll with the punches that we're going to be playing throughout the course of October is going to be Cave Blazers, a totally different style of game, but 2D action roguelike that kind of makes you just go with the different items you get and different power-ups and different buffs. You just kind of have to adjust your play style as you go as well. So excited to talk some more about that one, hear some more about Darkest Dungeon, and yeah, I guess that's it for this week. Thanks for listening to Pursuing Pixels, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Well, from one game that kind of forces you to just kind of, I shouldn't say from one game to another, but I guess for the, God damn it, transitions are bullshit.
From one goddamn it to another.
Yeah. Oh man, that was quick. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Should be the name of the episode.
Yeah, I had a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, that was well, even quicker then.
Yeah.
Even quicker then. I was gonna try to make the connection to Cave Blazers, but then I was like, but wait, we're not talking about Cave Blazers.
Baby.
Yeah, I was wondering what other game do we have to talk about? What am I not prepared to talk about?
This is the Game of the Month episode for Cave Blazers.
Yeah, we're going to talk Cave Blazers, so I'm screwed.